discuss, ladies and gentlemen, the facts and the law. Let us identify what is the issue. The issue is whether the 2009 COA report is correct in finding that the grant of 6.49 million pesos to certain dioceses of the Catholic Church violates the Constitution. I humbly submit that the COA report is wrong and that there was no constitutional violation. Under the Constitution, the power of the COA is to audit government funds, not to settle questions of constitutional law. That power is granted only to the Supreme Court. COA should have recommended that the constitutional issue should be raised with the Department of Justice, which is the official legal advisor of the executive branch of the government. Please, Mr. Chairman, Senator Gingona, please allow me now to proceed to a very humble constitutional analysis. Constitutional law consists not only of the Constitution, but also of the cases decided by the Supreme Court on constitutional grounds. So you cannot just say that just because you are literate and can read the Constitution in the same manner that you read a newspaper account or a best-selling book, that you already know what the Constitution says. Constitution plus cases decided by the Supreme Court equals constitutional law. So far, the only case decided by the Supreme Court that has some bearing on the present issue is the 1937 case of Aglipay versus Ruiz. The Post Office issued postage stamps commemorating an International Eucharistic Congress of the Catholic Church. Are you familiar with the Post Office? It was an agency of government where people wrote in longhand letters, put them in an envelope, and bought a stamp. We are no longer familiar with this process. But that was how it was during that time. The issue was brought by another church that public funds were being used to promote the interests of the Catholic Church. The issue was whether the stamps used for public money for religious purposes violated the Constitution. The Supreme Court ruled that there was no violation. Eh kung binasa ba ninyo itong Aglipay na ito, di wala na sana tayong problema. I quote, with your permission, what the Supreme Court said at that time, and has never been overruled by any subsequent Supreme Court. It is obvious that while the issuance and sale of the stamps in question may be said to be inseparably linked with an event of a religious character, the resulting propaganda, if any, received by the Roman Catholic Church was not the aim and pursuit of the government. We are of the opinion, said the Supreme Court, that the government should not be embarrassed in its activities simply because of incidental results. Allow me to boldface this clause, incidental results. This is the test of incidental result. More or less religious in character, if the purpose had in view is one which could legitimately be undertaken by appropriate legislation. The main purpose should not be frustrated by subordination to mere incidental results not contemplated. That is what the Supreme Court said. That is the only authoritative interpretation of those provisions of the Constitution that I have just read. They are not supposed to be interpreted by that group downstairs. I had to lie down in our lounge and I was bombarded with the whining and the moaning and the groaning of all those people who seem to think that just because there is a Constitution as a printed document, every person and his mother has a right to interpret it. That is bodacious disregard of the Constitution, which is supreme in our country. Magbasa naman tayo ng ating saligang batas bago tayo magsalita. Kung mali ba o tama ba o ano bang dapat ginawa. Eh kung sa tingin nila mas magaling pa sila, sa mga senador, ay tumakbo sila sa Senado. Huwag na lekturan nila kami dyan. At saka, I'm too old a hand in politics to know, you cannot just send a group to the Senate which is so otherwise remote from the rest of Metro Manila society, without spending money. Who spent money for those ralliers downstairs? I would like to know. Anyway, to return, thus, the test is the basic purpose and not the mere incidental result. Tingnan mo, ano bang talaga ang pakay ng gobyerno nang bigay siya ng pera? Ngayon, maraming fallout yun. Merong benefits yan, merong liabilities, merong advantages, merong disadvantages. Those are the incidents. Kaya sabi ng ating Korte Suprema, ang tingnan mo ay ang main purpose niya, hindi yung incidents niya. The basic purpose of the grant of public funds is clearly stated on the face of the checks themselves. Did anyone ever bother to see how these checks were worded before spouting off before the media? I was in a friend's house this morning. She happens to be a doctor. And I heard on the radio, pag-uusapan ang mamahalin na sasakyan. Mamahalin? Second-hand 10-year-old Nissan, pick up. Mitsubishi Strada, pick up. 3 pick up, 5 silang obispo. At saka tingnan mo kung saan ang mga opisina nitong mga obispo na ito. Hindi bale kung nandito sila sa Metro Manila. Ang isa ay sa Bontoc, Lagawe. Ang isa naman ay sa Bangged, Abra. Ang isa ay sa Cotabato. Mga bulubundukin na lugar ito at mahirap talagang mag-ikot. Caritas, Nueva Segovia, and Vigan, Ilocos Sur. Please forgive me, fellow Filipinos. I cannot control myself because this is such an outrage to the basic function of the Philippine Senate. You are asking us to investigate a matter that should never have passed first-year law in any reputable university in this country. The legend on the face of the checks, quote, purchase of service vehicles to be used by the diocese in its various community and health programs. Unquote. Don't they speak English here? I thought English is one of our national languages. Hindi ba na naintindihan ito? If there is any benefit to the bishop in the diocese, it is merely incidental. You want to debate this with me? I will do so. After I leave session floor. The threefold test: purpose, effect, entanglement. The Provisional Bill of Rights consists of 2 clauses. That's what lawyers like to say. Number 1, the Establishment Clause, prohibiting Congress from establishing a state religion. Kaya sa ilalim nitong probisyon ng ating saligang batas, hindi ka dapat magtulong na ginagamit ng pera ng gobyerno sa maski anong simbahan o relihiyon. Dahil para bang ginawa mo na siyang official state religion. That is the meaning of the Establishment Clause. And in addition to the Establishment Clause, the Constitution provides for the so-called Free Exercise Clause, which denies to Congress the power to prohibit the free exercise of religion. But today is a time only for the Establishment Clause. Under the Establishment Clause, the general guide is the concept of neutrality. This means that government should act to achieve only goals which are secular, meaning goals which are worldly, have to do with quotidian living, with day-to-day life. Does not have to do with the spiritual or intangible entities. The meaning of the Establishment Clause is, number 1, the goal should be secular. It should be worldly. It should have something to do with the day-to-day lives of citizens, not spiritual. And the rule is, government should achieve secular goals in a religiously neutral manner. Huwag kang mamili kung ano ang relihiyon at natulungan mo. Basta lahat sila. Gumawa ka ng criteria mo. If they fit the criteria, di bigay mo. Kung nakakatulong sila sa programang panlipunan.